Hello fellow humans and welcome to Computer Science for Humans. My name is Reagan and today we're going to be talking about Git and GitHub in terms that regular humans can understand because not all of us have computers in our brain telling us how to sync up to the matrix. Me, myself, being one of those regular humans, learning GitHub was difficult for me at first because no one really explained it in regular terms. So now that I do understand it, I'm hoping to simplify your journey toward understanding Git with this series of videos that I'm going to be doing now. Because after all, the point of this video is to help you. So one of the first questions I usually end up needing to answer for my students when we start talking about Git is, what exactly is it? And the short answer to this question is that Git is a way to put save points or checkpoints into your code. So it's essentially just like saving in a video game or getting a checkpoint in a video game, where you can make sure if something goes wrong, you can come back to a place where things weren't wrong. Now, if you've been programming for any length of time, you can probably already see why this is a valuable thing. If you're writing some code, it works great, and then you write a little bit more or a lot more, and it suddenly doesn't work anymore. If you've ever been in that scenario and you don't have an easy way to go back to when it worked, it's a nightmare, or at least it can be, to get it working again, because you have to kind of guess, like, wait, when did I make this change? Is this part of what's wrong? Where did I actually make the mistake? Things like that. Git is a way to sort of save your code so that you can come back to it exactly as it was if you mess something up later or if just something changes. And that's the main function of Git. In addition to functioning as a sort of save point for your code, Git also allows you to work together with other programmers on the same project without messing up each other's work as you go. So if you imagine something like Google Docs where you can have 12, 15, 100 people all working on the same document at the same time, it's kind of similar to that, but a little bit more clunky to use, a lot more clunky to use, because code is a little bit more difficult to manage than just writing a paper. So all that to say, Git is basically a way to have save points or checkpoints in your code and a way to manage sharing the workload on a particular project with other developers without getting in each other's way and messing up each other's code. So that does mean that Git is more useful the more people you have working on a project, since it makes the working together aspect of a large project like that a lot easier. But it's still very useful for your own code because of the checkpoints that I mentioned a minute ago. And we'll talk about how to use all of that stuff in later videos in this series as well. But for now, that is the main purpose of Git. Now, some of you who might be more well informed on the topic of source control, which is the type of thing that Git is, might be wondering why use Git over something like Subversion or one of the many other source control options that essentially do the same thing that are out there. And one of the main reasons is preference, quite frankly. When it comes down to it, your particular business is going to have a preference of which source control system to use. And at the end of the day, they all do approximately the same thing. The main difference with Git, and the main reason that I would suggest learning Git as opposed to, like I said, something like Subversion, is because Git is a lot more ubiquitous. You're going to find it just about everywhere. And I have never actually met somebody who primarily uses Subversion. Everyone I've met uses Git. So obviously that's a limited sample size, but you get the idea. Git is just a lot more common. So if you're just looking to add something to your tool belt, add some source control to your tool belt, I would recommend going with Git, as you're more likely to run across that than one of the others. I've also heard Git tends to be a bit easier to use than most of the other ones, but that's obviously going to be more of a matter of preference than anything. If you have experience with Mercurial or Subversion or one of the other source control systems that's out there and you use it on a regular basis, let me know down in the comments below. I'd be very interested to see what your experience has been with that and how it kind of compares to Git. Regardless, a lot of the principles you learn in Git will most likely apply to just about any other source control system you use. The commands will just have different names and maybe some different things are going on under the hood, but for the most part it should be at least relatively similar. And as one final note on this topic before we move on, I just want to make a public service announcement that if you are not using any source control at all on your code, please start using it. It's free. Git is free. You can pay for some advanced features, I think, but I've never needed them. And it is so worth it to learn this and start using it in your code. Seriously, use something. It doesn't have to be Git, just use something. You need source control. It will save you so much time, effort, and sanity. Moving on. So the other question that I usually need to answer for my students right at the beginning is what exactly is the difference between Git and GitHub? And the short answer is Git is the actual thing. GitHub is a website that lets you use it a little bit easier. Specifically, Git gives you the checkpoints and helps you to share your code with other developers more easily. GitHub is a way to, it's basically just like YouTube for code. You make your code on your computer and you push it, that's the fancy jargon term, you push it up onto the cloud server that is GitHub, and then people can look at it, share it, edit it sometimes if you allow those permissions, things like that. And the two are designed to go hand in hand. GitHub, as you might imagine, was designed to be a kind of cloud server for Git, but you can sometimes use Git with other things than GitHub. I think one of the main ones of those is Bitbucket, although I didn't have as positive interactions with that one. But the point is, GitHub is a website. Git is a piece of software that you install onto your computer that lets you do all of the things. So that's it for this video, the kind of intro to what is Git, why use it, the difference between Git and GitHub. In the next video, we're going to start talking about how to install Git onto your computer and how to actually use it, as well as some kind of pro tips and things you can expect from your industry. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to, and regardless, I hope to see you in the next video. Cheers.